one element of the retrenchment of craft beer and the sort of seeing the ebb and flow of things is that people who are choosing to drink alcohol are doing so, no matter their age, in a more purposeful manner. And they're thinking, what am I getting out of this? You know, it's not merely the effects, it's also the aromas, it's the flavors, it's the, where does it go with your food? And so being a little more, shall we say, mindful about what you're drinking and where you're drinking and who you're drinking with makes all the difference.
You are listening to the Capital of Craft podcast brought to you by the San Diego Brewers Guild. I am your host, Eric Fowler.
And I'm Jeff Fox from Beer Media Co.
And I'm Gene Fielden from Bottlecraft North Park.
North Park, we appreciate you driving up here to downtown Vista today to share your knowledge. I know you and I have had a relationship probably over 10 years, but I feel like it's always just we kind of touch, cross paths, and then don't see each other for another year. So I'm really happy to sit down and let the audience get to know the gem that Gene is.
And it's the first time I get to meet him, so that's even more fun.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about who you are, what your history is within craft beer, and then the pivotal role that Bottlecraft has played in North Park and the other locations around San Diego and beyond.
Sure. So I'm a Californian. I grew up in Berkeley. I've been in San Diego for just over 10 years. I spent a good deal of time on the East Coast and also in Germany and Hungary in Central Europe. And I really learned to drink beer there. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until I got into beer at the retail level, living in Boston, I was working at a beer shop, that I really fell hard for craft beer and started thinking about, why do these things taste the way they do? You know, how can we... And so I moved to San Diego just over 10 years ago, and Bottlecraft is a local chain of both bottle shops and basically the best elements of a bottle shop and a beer bar pushed together. It was started by Brian Jensen here in San Diego 14 years ago. There's 4 locations in San Diego. I run the North Park location. There's one in Little Italy, one in Oceanside, just to the west of here, and one in Point Loma in the Liberty Station, Liberty Public Market complex.
Right, yeah.
So
yeah, maybe you could define what differentiates a bottle shop for somebody that's unaware. I mean, I go to the local corner liquor store all the time, and they've got some good craft beer. Is that very similar, or is there any differences to the curated experience maybe that you offer?
Sure. So what we offer as a service is not merely just a bunch of beer. There's beer everywhere these days. Craft beer is all but mainstream in San Diego and beyond. And there's, almost too much choice out there. It's like Devo said, freedom of choice is what you've got. Freedom from choice is what you want. And so what we offer is a service by which a bunch of beer is just distilled down into its essences. And we have picked out a medley of beers that will... I like to think of ourselves as matchmakers, I want people to be matched up with the beer that they're looking for, whether or not they've heard of the beer before they came in the door.
How did you get, what about beer drew you in that made you wanted to work in this full time, and how does that kind of connect with that that curated experience?
Sure. So if you look at my CV, I really ought to be an archivist. I worked at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and later on as a records manager in Boston, which is like an archivist, except even less scintillating. And when I moved here to San Diego, I looked around briefly for archives and records management jobs, but 1, there aren't any. They're all getting digitized. And 2, my heart wasn't in it. I wasn't feeling it anymore. But having worked at a beer shop at the retail level in Boston for a few years, and really realizing with my own 2 eyes how much of a beer city San Diego was, it just ended up, it made sense. I can bring the sensibilities of curation and organization and stylistic sensibilities into the world of this library of drinkable adventures.
Wow. It's interesting. It's a beer archive.
Yeah, except you can drink it. You don't just need to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, and it replenishes itself, and it's ever changing.
Yeah. Does it replenish itself, or do you replenish it now? I know, right?
So how does like your vision and passion for that variety, how does that clash or meet with the guest walking through the door who, in their mind, you know, probably wants a hazy IPA or something similar? What does that customer experience and journey look like when visiting a shop that's so well curated?
Well, thank you. The idea is when you walk in to Bottlecraft North Park, where I can be found most days of the week, you have a panoply of choices. You can buy one beer or a six-pack to go. You can buy a bottle of wine to go, but you can also drink beer or wine on the premises. And it really helps focus the mind if you are shopping for beer, if you also have a beer in your hand, even if it's just a small pour, just a little 4-ounce pour. It definitely makes the outside world feel very far away, and you get this little escape. I think what's important about bottle shops per se is that they, you know, the concept of like the third place. The third place is where people go that isn't their home and isn't their workplace. And so cafes, bottle shops, bars, wine bars, what have you, have been thought of theoretically as third places where you can be neither at home nor at work. Well, nowadays, to be at home and to be at work, for a lot of people, those categories have collapsed.
Sure.
You know, there's only one place that's the home and the workspace. And so we don't even need a third place. We need a second place. You know what I mean? And so when you come in, you can get a beer off our draft. We have a small set of draft lines. You can also, our license permits that we can open up a bottle of beer for you there, or a bottle of wine, wine by the glass, and you can shop around and be with us.
How has San Diego breweries, like what role or pillar does that play in the variety of beers that are offered, and how has that maybe changed over time from an interaction of, this is a pretty loaded question, but like how the breweries have and distributors have worked with you pushing their local beers compared to outside beers or even international product?
That's very good. So we are very lucky here in San Diego to have such an enormous archipelago of breweries. I mean, such depth and breadth of breweries, and furthermore, very engaged beer drinkers. And these are necessary for a healthy ecosystem. What we have beyond that, beyond the support of local breweries, is the ability to order beer through distributors or importers from other parts of the country or from around the world. We're looking for typically the best we can find in any given category. As for, what was the second part of your question? How that's changed?
Yeah, so you know, let's look at your coolers, and let's say 20% of it's San Diego beer. Has, over your tenure at Bottlecraft, has that 20% remained 20%, or have you seen it grow and shrink and grow again? And is that affected by the breweries that you're working with, or customers coming in having specific requests?
That's a both and. The nice thing about a shop as small as the one that I run is that what you are seeing is the pure, distilled essence of my tastes, but also that of the neighborhood and my wonderful team. You can see, the tastes of a single person can really affect the sorts of things that we order, because a place like that lives or dies by its regulars, and we have the best regulars.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, and I think that coming in and turning a shopping trip into an experience is something that I think separates you from, competition, like something like a liquor store or something like that, of course. But it sounds like it kind of blurs the lines between, a tap room and a retailer in a way where you kind of get the best of both worlds.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Well, and how often do people come in, taste something, and then immediately go buy a 6-pack of it or
daily,
something?
all the time, all the time. Yeah. The flip side of it too, of course, is that with the ability to serve both on and off premise, and I want to emphasize this for people who are not so aware of the way that alcohol laws work. In California and in lots of other states, generally any place that is serving or selling alcohol has one of two licenses. They have an on-premise license, meaning you can drink there but take nothing with, or they have an off-premise license, meaning they can strictly take things with, like the corner store archetype that you gave in your example. Bottlecraft is unusual, almost singular, in that it has both licenses overlapping, working in harmony. So there might be beers that are only available in package, and so we'll carry those if we want to. There might be beers that are only available in keg format. We'll carry those if we want to. It's allowed us to be very nimble in the course of time.
Interesting. And over time, how have you seen the tastes of people change? Are there certain stylistic changes that have been, I mean, I know personally my stylistic changes have definitely evolved over time. How have you seen the industry go?
Certainly. So, San Diego is the self-described world capital of IPAs. I don't see that changing. We have the West Coast IPA, of course. We had the haze craze of circa a decade ago, and those are here to stay. What makes me very delighted as a beer drinker as well as a beer buyer is the return of lagers. I adore lagers of all stripes. And so this return to appreciating lagers that had previously been unfairly maligned, let's say. People tasted poor examples and decided this is what beer was and explored no further. It delights me to no end that people are coming back to and reappreciating a well-crafted lager, because they're the hardest style of beer to make. And they're just, to be able to appreciate the brewers that bring them to us, it's a delight.
Yeah, recording this just a couple days after 4th of July, I had a mental note when picking up beers, for the holiday, how many craft American light lagers there are. And I've, been part of producing those beers and around the decision making to, get those to market. But how prolific it is now on store shelves. Like, what is your take on a style like that historically craft beer was built on defying, right? We were very flavor driven. I think we still are, but like, what is that experience and shift been to you? And are your guests coming in, do they even ask for those styles?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have extremely well-informed erudite regulars, and they often know what they like. A lot of people don't know what they like, or they do know what they like, but they maybe don't have the vocabulary to describe it. So we're here to take you by the hand and say, this might work for you. I think that lagers make a lot of sense. We're not getting any younger. Lagers are nice and low ABV beers. In a world of infinite choices, but finite beer budgets, and for that matter, finite capacity to drink beer, why not have one or two really well-made beers rather than 30 of something that you're not going to feel so great after drinking?
That's a good point. I mean, I could definitely say that my capacity for hangovers has only increased with age.
Yeah.
That's, and I'm a big IPA fan. I love the flavor. I love, all of them, and they wreck me. So I will sometimes trend towards some of those lighter beers just for, my personal safety. And then still choose strategically when today's an IPA day, and I can just enjoy that flavor. It's a treat. Yeah, it's a treat.
Yeah, a little jewel you've placed in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's that's the market catering to an aging consumer base. Are you seeing any breweries coming in with anything innovative that might not be for white bearded dudes with tattoos who are a little tired at night and can't really do the big ABV stuff anymore?
We're seeing some really how do I put this?
Beers not for Gene is, I guess, what I'm asking.
Ooh, yeah, I'm fairly omnivorous.
Yeah.
I'm just drinking less as I get older. It's a good health decision. I think one element of the retrenchment of craft beer and the sort of seeing the ebb and flow of things is that people who are choosing to drink alcohol are doing so, no matter their age, in a more purposeful manner. And they're thinking, what am I getting out of this? You know, it's not merely the effects, it's also the aromas, it's the flavors, it's the, where does it go with your food? And so being a little more, shall we say, mindful about what you're drinking and where you're drinking and who you're drinking with makes all the difference.
And has cost affected that at all? Like, are you seeing, I've noticed in my personal spending habits, we'll reach for, the imported authentic Saison a little less than maybe I did. Maybe I'll still get that style and choose domestic, which is probably what I should do to begin with. But let's be honest, there's
either way.
Yeah. Have you seen price and cost impact like guest demand or what they're looking for?
Yes and no to a certain extent. Yeah. I mean, for the more budget conscious consumer, there's certainly still plenty of options. And for those who are willing to treat themselves, then there's still plenty of options.
Yeah. I would say on the other side of my comment though too is the range of cost per ounce was so wide at one point where rare barrel aged or certain sour beers were upwards of $40 for a $7.50 or even smaller bottle. And I think Firestone's probably the best example where they started changing their formats to where maybe price per ounce is the same for them, but it's the barrier to entry is a little lower, so you're not dropping $30 on a bottle. That's
absolutely one of the things that we've all seen in our time drinking and thinking about beer as an industry is basically the death of the bomber. So the bomber was, I mean, it still exists, the 22 ounce bottles that used to be omnipresent at bottle shops. And there are still a very few beers that come in, say, 750 milliliter bottles, wine-sized bottles, I should say, chiefly imports from Belgium. That's really the predominant ones. But otherwise, the bomber has all but disappeared from our shelves and have been replaced hegemonically with the 16 ounce can.
I would argue, though, that it's been currently being replaced with 19.2 ounce cans from in convenience stores. So maybe not specialty SKUs, but one of the fastest categories that I've seen is the convenience store. What are the stovepipes? Is that what they call them?
Yeah. I think Oscar Blues tried to popularize the term stovepipes. I call them giraffes.
Okay.
I've been trying to get everybody to call them giraffes without success. Because they're long necks.
Well, maybe work in a 7-Eleven for a couple of years and then.
Yeah, I have actually been speaking with a few brewers that are trying to switch a little bit more to 12 ounce cans as well, and more like six packs of 12 ounce cans rather than the 4-pack of the larger cans, as like a way to kind of, I think, let people experience more different kinds of beers rather than cracking one open and that's your beer for the
certainly
for the session.
Yeah, a fine idea. I support this trend towards lower size formats. It allows people to taste more than they're imbibing, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, what are some of the benefits of working with you as, say, a brewery or something? How does that what's that process look like? How do they get involved? How do they get something on your shelf? What's the benefit of it?
Sure. So breweries have sales reps, and they all come and see us, and they drop off samples. And what we ask is that the samples be fresh, and that the beer be a good example of your brewery's output. If you are an IPA brewery and you make 13 IPAs and the first sample that we see is an experimental fruited sour that maybe isn't quite in your wheelhouse, maybe that's not the best first impression. You know what I mean? But yeah, we're willing to give a fair shake, give it a taste, and see if it deserves inclusion, or merits inclusion, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And are most the breweries that you're bringing in, we mentioned distributors, so maybe somebody listening that's not so aware. You could go through the different types of brewery distribution models and how they might interact with you and get beer from the brewery to your shelf, especially being local, right? Some of these breweries that you're buying from are within 5 miles of your shop, but that beer might travel to multiple places. So what does that look like from your end?
Sure. So there's multiple models. There's multiple ways for breweries to get their beer out into the general market. The simplest one is just a self-distribution. So breweries will have their own distribution arm, and they will have their own trucks or vans or what have you, and they will get the beer to you directly. They sell only their products. Far more common, especially for breweries coming from further away, or especially any brewery outside of San Diego County, you're going to see signing with a distributor. And so this is an aggregated portfolio of beers and non-beers and other things. And so they have their own sales reps, but then kind of paradoxically, the breweries might have their sales reps also, so as to help get the brand out there, get the beer out there, have their own support. There's even a potential third leg, which would be that of importers, of course, where the beer will pass from outside of the country through an importer who then sells it to a distributor who then sells it to us at the retail or the bar level.
Yeah. And I think, most beer geeks, maybe they don't need to know, but don't realize that self-distribution ability is fairly unique to California. A lot of states don't offer that. And it's also fairly unique to an alcoholic beverage, where a lot of wines or liquor, those canned cocktails and stuff, legally cannot be sent directly from a distributor to an end consumer. And so, when people are buying beer, it's from the brewery possibly to a distributor, then to the store, and then to your house. And, oftentimes a lot of those markups happen from that distribution change too. And we, have been, not to get too into tariffs, but I think a lot of end consumers don't realize when they see an aluminum can that's maybe going to go up 1/4 cent. Well, the way margins work is it doesn't just go 1/4 cent from step 1, 2, 3 to 4. It goes 1/4 cent to 1/2 cent. Well, then that 1/2 cent goes to 1 cent, and then it continues to get marked up from there. So it is quite a chain, and there has to be speed to it and refrigeration, and there's logistically, there's a lot that goes into getting that beer from the brewery to somebody's house.
Takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
I like to think about all the people who have touched the beer in some capacity, from the brewers all the way to the lips of the drinker. We're in a funny space. Retailers occupy a really important part of the craft beer ecosystem. I'm here to speak up for retailers, and we're right at the nexus, in the dead center between the brewer and the drinker. And so this was actually kind of an epiphany moment 10 years ago now. The first Festival of Funk, Modern Times, I think that was 2015. It's getting so hard to remember these days. Down at Golden Hall, I went down there. This was the moment that I realized that this might not just be a job. This might be a career. I went down to Golden Hall, stood in line, and I knew tons of people in front of me and behind me in line, but I recognized some people because they worked for breweries, or they were distribution people, or they were, I saw Eddie from Machete Beer House. But then also I knew a number of fellow enthusiasts, drinkers, people who appreciated beer. And so I realized I sat right in the middle between these two worlds and watched it all combine. And of course, if you're going to be at a sour beer festival, you're going to attract enthusiasts. There's some self-filtration going on. But I got home that evening and I said to my partner, my spouse, Taylor, I said, I think I might have a career in beer. And she was like, yeah, duh, Gene.
That's fantastic.
Changes that focus.
Yeah.
Well, where, do you have any last parting words, and where could anybody find you if they wanted to continue their journey and let you kind of help guide that?
Love to. So yeah, there's 4 locations of Bottlecraft in San Diego. One is in Little Italy, run by my counterpart, Erik Schnaubelt. I run the North Park location at the corner of 30th and University, right at the crossing of North Park. We also have an outpost of Venissimo Cheese in the back, which is a local cheese operation. We love them. Right here to the west in Oceanside, Eric Deerdorf runs Bottlecraft Oceanside. That's basically through the alley from Green Cheek, formerly Bagby, and then the Liberty Public Market Complex in Point Loma. For those of you who wish to find more Bottlecrafts, if you want to actually visit all of them, there's one in Long Beach, run by Ryan Rowland, near the airport, so north of Signal Hill in Long Beach, and there's one all the way up in San Luis Obispo, Central California, run by Sean Casey. And these are my friends and my compadres, and yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, make sure that you go by and visit one and see what they have to offer. But thank you for listening to the Capital of Craft podcast. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe, and you can follow us at SD Brewers to see more on our social media accounts. And we'd love to see you at the next one. Cheers.
Cheers to you.